In this video, we are going to talk about the number one thing that holds most people back in life and what we can do to not be held back by it any longer in our own lives and move forward in a new way. Most people, and this includes myself in the past and sometimes currently, if I'm being honest, and just about everybody that you will meet, have a long list of excuses that they will give you for why they are where they are in life. They have a long list of reasons that they will tell you it's because of this and these things happened and I wish I could do that, but I can't, so I'm here. And if you ever have a conversation with somebody, you'll notice people throw these out very quickly. It's like an automatic response. It's very interesting. Pay attention the next time you're having a conversation with somebody, how many limiting things they will say that they attribute to their current situation. I would love to do that, but I can't because of this. Or, oh, I wish I was that type of person. If I had that opportunity, I would love it. People throw these out almost constantly. It's actually kind of amazing once you start paying attention to it. And the key is to realize that you and I do the same thing. We have a story that we tell ourselves and other people to kind of convince ourselves and other people that we are right to be where we are in life right now. And basically, every single person on earth is addicted to their own story. This is the story we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. Oh, I can't live up to that dream I had that one time because my circumstances are too hard. Or, if I'd had that opportunity, I could do it, but it wasn't in the cards, it didn't line up right. I just don't have that chance. If things had been different, then it would have been great, but I'm here because of these things. We repeat these stories over and over to ourselves and to pretty much anybody who will listen because they give us a sort of excuse or a reason, a logical train of thought that we can say, okay, well, I'm here because of these things. And the problem is that we apply what we perceive as our current limitations, whether those are actually true or not, but we apply those perceived limitations to our perceived future potential. There's a cognitive bias that's called the end of history illusion. Basically, everybody perceives of themselves now as sort of a finalized product. Everybody can look back 10 years ago and say, wow, I grew so much. I was a completely different person 10 years ago. I didn't know any of the stuff I know now. I've learned so much, I've grown so much. But almost everybody still, if they look forward 10 years, perceives themselves as likely to stay pretty much the same. We can see that we changed all of this, everything changed over these 10 years. But the next 10 years, we convince ourselves that I'm pretty much going to be who I am right now. The situations I experience right now, the limitations I perceive right now, who I am right now, it's not going to change that much over the next 10 years. And the way that this limits us is we have these perceived limitations, the story we tell ourselves, the story we are addicted to about who we are right now is so compelling. The perceived I am this way, this is all the reasons that I'm this way. It's believable. We believe our own story about our limits and things we can and cannot do right now. And then we look forward into the future through the lens of those same limits, not realizing that those limits may well not apply in 10 years, or 5 years, or 3 years, or maybe they don't actually even apply right now. We're able to look at the past and say that, well, if I'd known these things differently, I would have done stuff differently. But we are very rarely able to look at the future and say, well, by the time I get there, I will have learned how to handle these new obstacles. So the way that this holds us back is when we look at where we are right now and we look at challenges, things we'd like to achieve. Oh, I'd like to have a great job or a great career in 10 years, or in 10 years I'd like to have an amazing relationship, or 5 years I want to own a house, whatever the case might be, right? We look at that challenge under the misguided assumption that our current limitations, everything we perceive about our current self, will still be holding true at that time. So in other words, we look at problems or situations that we probably cannot deal with right now. It might be true that right now you can't instantly manifest a great relationship. It might be true that right now you cannot make enough money with your current skill set to buy a house in 5 years. We look at that and we say that this is the way things will always be. In other words, we put our current self up against challenges in our head. We say, I imagine I'm this way, and I imagine this challenge, it's way up here. I'm way down here. There's no way I can do that. And that is probably true. There is no way that your current self can do those things. But the illusion that we all fall for is that your current self has to do those things. For instance, I'm currently in Thailand. It's a little bit of a windy day. You can probably see in some of the trees behind me, but I am currently in Thailand, and for the longest time, I've wanted to travel. I've done a fair bit of world travel at this point, but before I went on my very first trip, I was absolutely petrified. I was terrified because I had conceived of myself in this way with all these limits and world travel as being this kind of scary thing. You're out on your own and everything's so different and you have to cope with all these changing circumstances, just a lot of uncertainty, and it was terrifying. But the problem was that I was not considering the fact that I would, through the experience, grow, that I would learn, that I would be able to cope by virtue of coping with the experience in the first place. Once I went through the start, the follow-up steps weren't really that bad. Now that I have experienced it a little bit, I've learned and I've grown, and it's no longer nearly as challenging or overwhelming as it first seemed. But to the past version of me, it was an almost insurmountable obstacle. There was no way to think my way around it without just giving myself permission to do the thing in the first place. The illusion that we fall for is that I have to find a way for my current perceived limited self to achieve all of these future things, whether that's a relationship or business or finances, just feeling good about yourself, whatever the perceived future thing is, we say, well, I couldn't do that right now. Me, as I perceive myself, because I think, remember that end of history thing, I think likely that I'm not going to change that much, that I'm not going to be that different in 10 years, when in reality, you will be very different. You can learn so much in 10 years. You'll be a completely different person. And the person that you are right now does not have to succeed at these challenges. It's true, the version of you right now probably can't do those things, but it also doesn't need to. Just like when I got on a plane, the past version of me did not need to know how to do the things, because through the process of doing them, figure them out. When I was trying to solve the imagined problem, when I was trying to have an imagined reality in which my past self could come up with the solution to every single possible permutation of problems, that's very overwhelming. And that's what we spend most of our time and energy doing. We try to imagine the ways in which our current perceived limited self can overcome these imagined future obstacles, because we say, well, I'm way down here. This is so hard. I can't do that right now. That might be true, but that past version of you doesn't need to do it. You just can do it. It's strange how we get stuck in this story, this narrative. We're so addicted to the who we are right now and perpetuating that into the future as if we will always be the way we are right now. But we didn't know 5 years ago, maybe even like a year ago. Think about a year ago. You've probably progressed so much. You've probably learned so many things, and there's probably things you would not do the same way. And yet, if you imagine a year into your future, it's likely that you think of, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I could never, that'd be way too hard for a year for me to have figured out the next step in my career. That's like, it's overwhelming because we imagine that all of the steps have to be made by our current self right now. Right now, you have to make all of these steps into your future. But that's not the way it works, but it is the way that our psyche tries to comprehend these things and tries to figure out on day one what 100 different steps are going to be. And this is why I think so many books are written on the concept of, just take your first step. Just start the journey, because what you learn on your first step makes it easier to take the second step. Most of us are at step 0 and trying to figure out how we're going to get to step 50. And we say, well, I can never get to step 50 from here. And that's true, because we're trying to figure out how to do 49 odd steps at once. But you don't actually need to know how to do step 50 until you're at step 49. The trick is to just realize that like you have grown in the past, like you are a completely different person to who you were 10 or 15 years ago. 10 or 15 years from now, you can once again be a completely different person. All of those things that were once challenging and unknown and completely overwhelming will probably be not that big of a deal. For instance, I used to be overwhelmed with the concept of making YouTube videos. Much less challenging now, but until I just did it, I was trying to figure out my entire arc, like how I was going to do all these things, and it's so overwhelming. Oh, I don't know. Until I recorded a video, I spent like 7 years thinking how cool it would be to make YouTube videos. I spent 7 years imagining all of these things about making a YouTube video, and I never just made a video. Start with step one, and what you learn on step one will make step two way easier. Step three will naturally follow. The trick to moving forward and stopping this holding yourself back is to give yourself permission to take the first step, realizing that the whole arc of progress will naturally progress, and that who you are right now, it might be true, that story in your head that says, who I am right now, I could never be a billionaire. That's true, because who you are right now is not a billionaire. But the attachment to who you are right now is the illusion, because you will not be who you are right now tomorrow. In 20 minutes, you're not going to be who you are right now. It's only that illusion that we kind of imagine ourselves to be relatively consistent and say, well, in the future, you know, I'm going to be pretty much who I am right now. That's just not true. Look at history for evidence. We have so much potential for growth and change, but we continually sell ourselves short based on these limiting belief structures. Brains are weird, man. It's the weird how we hold ourselves back. I love talking about this stuff. You're still curious about where some of these limiting beliefs come from. Where do we get these ideas that we then cling to and say, I am this way and these are my hard limits and I can't change. This is just the way things are. Where do these beliefs form? Check out this video on inner child patterns, how to heal them, where they come from, all that good stuff. One of my favorite videos that I've made recently. Check that out. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.